Have you ever wondered how a simple tea party in a garden could turn into a nightmare? On a seemingly peaceful afternoon, the air was filled with the scent of flowers, and birds sang softly through the trees. Four friends gathered to enjoy warm tea, completely unaware that something was waiting beneath the wooden table, and it was not human. A shadow, a sickly green glow, and whispers that chill the bone were creeping closer. Every movement, every laugh, every sip of tea, could be a trap. Do you have the courage to stay until the end of this tea party? In the wide garden filled with the scent of blooming flowers, the sound of birds echoed softly with the gentle rustle of the wind through tall trees. A wooden table stood neatly beneath the shade of a pink trumpet tree. A white porcelain tea set placed perfectly at the center. Each cup arranged so beautifully it looked like a scene from an old storybook. Four friends gathered that afternoon. Their laughter mingled with the soft hum of nature. Sunlight filtered through the branches, casting dappled shadows over the table. Petals drifted down like pink snow, landing gently on the teacups. A young woman named Min lifted her cup and took a sip. The tea was warm and smooth, but a strange bitterness lingered at the tip of her tongue. She set the cup down slowly. The sunlight glinted off the rim, and in the reflection of the tea, she saw something. A shadow, faint and human-like. Yet no one was standing there. The wind suddenly grew stronger, sending leaves swirling across the table. A faint whisper came from behind the hedge. The laughter stopped. All four turned to look at each other, eyes wide and uncertain. Lynn, another friend, reached for the teapot to pour more tea. But the pot was icy cold, as if it had been resting in snow. Her brows furrowed. She glanced at Min. "Who set this tea before we came?" she asked softly. No one answered. Under the table, something began to move. Under the table, something began to move. At first, it was subtle, a slight rustle against the wooden legs, like a small animal shifting in the shadows. Min leaned forward instinctively, her hand brushing against the cool surface of the table. Her heart thumped rapidly in her chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the still garden. The shadows under the table stretched unnaturally, elongating with the shifting light. Lynn instinctively stepped back, knocking over a cup, which shattered into delicate fragments that glittered in the sunlight. The sound startled all of them. A gust of wind swept across the garden, scattering petals and stirring the leaves into chaotic motion. "I think something is under there," whispered Min, her voice trembling. Her friends exchanged nervous glances, their laughter long gone, replaced by a creeping dread. The whispering sound grew louder, a low, guttural murmur, indistinct but undeniably human. It seemed to come from beneath the table, circling around them in invisible arcs. Anna, the boldest of the group, bent down cautiously. Her fingers brushed the grass, seeking the source of the movement. Suddenly, the shadow shifted, darting quickly across the ground. It was too fast to be an animal, and too silent to be a person. A chill ran through her spine as she realized the shadow seemed to mimic their every movement. The sunlight flickered as clouds moved overhead, casting the garden into a dim, gray half-light. The flowers, which had smelled so sweet moments ago, now seemed heavy and oppressive, their colors dulling. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, carrying an unfamiliar scent, something earthy, damp, and faintly metallic. "Did you feel that?" whispered Lynn, her voice barely audible. The group froze. The breeze carried no birdsong now, no rustle of normal life. Even the leaves hung still as if holding their breath. Min's eyes darted toward the teacups. The tea inside them was moving, swirling in tiny, circular motions, despite no one touching it. Anna stepped back, bumping into the table. The teapot trembled slightly, tilting on the edge. A drop of tea fell and sizzled as if hitting fire, though the table was dry. They all looked down at it, paralyzed with a strange mixture of fear and disbelief. The whispering grew louder, sharper, almost urgent now. Min wanted to run, to scream, but her legs refused to obey. It was as if invisible chains held her in place, anchoring her to the garden floor. She could hear her own breath in the silence, quick, shallow, panicked. The petals around her seemed to move as well, drifting unnaturally toward the shadows beneath the table. Suddenly, a hand, pale, almost translucent, emerged from beneath the table. It was thin, long-fingered, and trembled slightly as it reached toward the teacups. The friends screamed in unison, stumbling backward. The hand froze midair, as if testing them, testing their fear. Then, another hand appeared, followed by a pale face, eyes wide and hollow. The figure was small, childlike, yet impossibly thin, wrapped in tattered clothing that seemed to float around it like smoke. Its eyes locked onto Min, unblinking and hollow, reflecting the sunlight in a way that was almost blinding. A sound escaped its mouth, a high-pitched, warped whimper, not quite human, yet undeniably alive. The whispering had now become coherent words, faint and distorted. Come, join, tea, forever. Min staggered backward, tripping over a root. Her hand landed in a puddle of tea that had spilled earlier, the liquid icy cold against her skin. Lin grabbed her arm, pulling her up, but the ground seemed to shift beneath them. The garden had transformed. The flowers loomed taller than the trees had moments ago, their petals curling inward like claws. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the lawn, merging and twisting into shapes that resembled faces, watching, waiting. Anna screamed, but the sound felt distant, as if coming from underwater. The whispering grew insistent, almost furious. Min could now hear laughter, distorted and gurgling, as though the garden itself were alive and mocking them. Every step they tried to take felt resisted by an invisible force. The grass clung to their feet, the soil sticky like mud. Then the figure emerged fully, standing upright. It was impossibly tall now, limbs elongated, eyes glinting with a sickly golden hue. Its mouth stretched unnaturally as it smiled, revealing sharp, needle-like teeth. It raised one hand and pointed toward the remaining teacups. The friends understood without words. If they touched the tea, if they sat back at the table, they would be trapped. But the figure moved with unnatural speed, cutting off their escape. Min grabbed a fallen chair, swinging it toward the figure, but it passed through it like smoke. The laughter and whispering crescendoed, surrounding them from all directions. The flowers now seemed to lean inward, forming a tunnel of twisting stems and thorns that blocked any view of the garden's edge. Time distorted. Minutes stretched into hours, yet sunlight did not change its angle. Every heartbeat thundered in Min's ears, each one echoing the same terrifying thought: they might never leave this place. And the shadow beneath the table was growing, coiling like a serpent, reaching for them, dragging them toward the dark underside of the garden. Lin screamed again, clutching Anna and Min's hands. The garden was no longer a familiar, serene place. It was alive, malevolent, and hungry. The whispers turned into chanting now, unintelligible but filled with purpose. The figure tilted its head, listening to the sounds, savoring their fear. Min felt a sudden coldness creep up her spine. It was not from the wind. It was as if the garden itself exhaled icy breath, suffocating and sharp. The petals, once soft and delicate, now drifted like knives in the air. They cut lightly at their skin, drawing tiny lines that burned with an unnatural heat. The figure's eyes flicked to each of them in turn. It smiled wider, as if amused by their terror. It whispered, "Tea, party, forever." The friends realized the garden wanted them to stay, wanted them to join the shadow beneath the table, to sip from the teacups that held more than tea. Min's mind raced. They had to escape, yet every path seemed blocked. The shadows twisted into corridors, the flowers bent like walls, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Her hand brushed the grass, but it was sticky, almost alive. Something cold and wet brushed against her ankle, pulling her slightly backward. Then the air grew thick, almost tangible. It pressed against their faces and chests, restricting their breathing. A faint glow emerged from the teacups, greenish and sickly. The shadow beneath the table wriggled, stretching upward, reaching its thin, clawed hands toward them. The whispering became screaming, and through the scream, Min heard one word, repeated endlessly. Stay. The friends huddled together, fear paralyzing their movements. Every instinct screamed to run, yet every step forward was resisted. The garden's sounds, the wind, birds, and rustling leaves, were gone. All that remained was the whispering, the laughter, and the pulse of the shadow beneath the table. Min took a deep breath, her mind racing for a plan. She remembered the old stories her grandmother told her, about spirits that thrived on fear, that held places in their grasp through the mind's own terror. If they could resist fear, perhaps they could weaken it. But the figure loomed closer, its distorted face inches from hers, the greenish glow illuminating its hollow eyes. And the shadow beneath the table writhed faster, eager, insistent. The friends had seconds to act. Min clenched her fists, forcing her mind to focus, to resist the fear that was trying to root them in place. The wind roared suddenly, stronger than before, lifting the petals into a vortex around the garden. The figure recoiled slightly, hissing, as though the wind itself was a weapon. A plan formed in Min's mind, but it was risky. She would have to reach the teacups, the source of the glow, without touching them, using the momentum of the wind and the chaos of the storm to shield her movements. The others would have to follow her instinctively, without hesitation. The shadow beneath the table surged forward, faster than ever. Its whispering became a scream, filling every corner of the garden, every breath in their lungs, every heartbeat with terror. And as the first of them lunged toward the table, the world seemed to tilt, the flowers bending inward, the sun flickering, and the air itself trembling. The fate of their tea party, and perhaps their very lives, now rested on a fragile, desperate gamble. Min lunged toward the glowing teacups, careful not to touch them directly. Lin and Anna followed, moving with synchronized precision, hearts pounding in unison. The shadow beneath the table writhed violently, its whispers rising into a deafening chorus. It reached, clawed, and twisted, but the trio moved faster than it could anticipate. A sudden gust of wind surged through the garden, scattering petals and leaves in a swirling, chaotic dance. The figure recoiled, hissing, its twisted form flickering like a broken reflection in a pond. The green glow from the teacups pulsed violently, then began to dim, as though reacting to their courage. Min grabbed a small silver spoon from the table and, using it as a buffer, nudged the cups slightly. The shadow shrieked, a sound that vibrated through their bones. The garden trembled, flowers bending inward, thorns brushing against their skin, but they did not falter. Step by step, they retreated, guiding the teacups toward the sunlight that had broken through the clouds. With each movement, the darkness retreated a little further, the whispers weakening. Finally, they reached the edge of the garden where sunlight spilled freely. The teacups' glow faded completely, the shadow dissolved, and the whispering ceased abruptly. The figure vanished, leaving only faint traces of mist and the soft rustle of wind through the leaves. The garden returned to its serene state, flowers bright, scents sweet, and birdsong resuming as if nothing had happened. The friends collapsed onto the grass, breathing heavily, hands trembling but free. Min looked at the teacups, now harmless and still, and realized that courage and unity had broken the spell. Lin laughed softly, shaky, yet relieved, and Anna wiped tears from her cheeks. Though the garden appeared peaceful, an uneasy silence lingered. Shadows moved ever so slightly beneath the trees, teasing the corner of their vision. The memory of the whispers and the pale figure would remain with them forever. And Min understood that some tea parties were never truly ordinary. They could leave the garden, but the feeling of being watched, of the dark presence lurking just beneath the surface, would never fully disappear. With careful steps, they gathered their belongings. The garden seemed welcoming again, yet none of them spoke of the shadows directly. A quiet understanding passed among them, some mysteries were better left unspoken. They walked away together, hearts still racing, glancing once more at the table where the teacups gleamed innocently in the sun. The wind carried a faint whisper one last time, almost playful. Until next time. And with that, they left the garden behind, stepping back into the ordinary world, forever changed by the memory of the tea party that was anything but ordinary. Dash dash dash. Dash dash dash.